Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Armchair Booking Wrestling Podcast. I'm your host. My name is Stupendous Steve, and joining me is my co-host is Dynamite Dwaylon Davis, the Triple D.
Hey, everybody.
And this is a special occasion for us because it was 1 year ago this coming Saturday, but we don't record on Saturday. But it was 1 year ago this coming Saturday that Dwaylon recorded on this as a co-host for the first time. Actually, you were a stand-in.
Yeah.
It didn't become permanent until it was a few weeks later.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's definitely been fun. I mean, we've had some ups and downs. We've had some technical difficulties because of equipment on both of our ends, both of us being sick. And we discussed this, not so long ago. It's like every once in a while, the hurdles jump in front of us, but we managed to get past them. And so we want to discuss some of the things that have happened in the past year, because the past 12 months in wrestling has been very interesting. I would have never predicted.
Yeah, me either.
Especially the stuff that's been happening lately. And that's been kind of a wild ride.
Yeah. It really has.
And think about this: when you first started co-hosting, they had not let let a totally live audience back in yet.
No, not yet. No, we were still in the with WWE. It was still the Thunderdome era with AEW. They had a lot of their wrestlers and backstage people were kind of their audience during that time.
And I think, what was it, SummerSlam? Was that the first one?
Money in the Bank was for WWE. Money in the Bank was the first one that had a full live crowd.
Because that was the one Vince walked out, "Where the hell you been?"
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, that was pretty funny. I mean, I got to give him props. That was good.
Yeah.
And, and now it's been, for the most part, pretty normalized since.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I mean, in the past year, we've had Ring of Honor, they didn't fold, but they ceased stops for a little bit, but then they were bought by Tony Khan.
Yeah.
So now they're still there. We've seen some arrests.
Yeah.
And
unfortunately,
we've seen some who are probably going to end up arrested.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's been a very interesting ride. But before we talk about that ride and some of the other current news, which makes me really question a lot of things, we're going ahead and give our contact and listing info before everybody cuts it off, like they would at the end of the show. But if you want to email us, it's armchairbookingpodcast@gmail.com. If you would like to find us on Facebook, just go look for Armchair Booking Podcast at facebook.com/armchairbookingpodcast. On Instagram, also at Armchair Booking. On Twitter, at Booking Armchair. On TikTok, at Armchair Booking. We got to do another video to put on there at some point.
Yeah.
Might as well make use of it. On YouTube, obviously, if you're watching, you already know this, because we're not on any other video channels that I'm aware of. And in any audio platform that you can think of, we're there. If you don't see us, let us know, and we will do whatever we can to get ourselves added. You can find our merch at tpublic.com/user/armchair-booking-podcast. You can get our shirt, our merchandise, which includes shirts, which includes phone cases, coffee mugs, masks, because you maybe have to go back to wearing a mask here soon. I don't know. It's getting,
you never know.
I mean, there's some places that are going back to it again.
Mm-hmm.
But pillowcases, notebooks, I mean, all sorts of stuff. I mean, it's actually pretty neat. But I got this shirt here. This isn't one of our shirts. This is part of the TNC Sports Talk.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I just want to give those guys a shout out. I mean, great podcast. They've been a little bit on hiatus right now, but I have a feeling they're going to be coming back here soon. Because with this, you have the Jay and Trey podcast, but you also have Justin. He actually does his own, just solo, called The Throw In.
Mm-hmm.
And it's still really good, because just quality product. I also got to go listen to the Hillbilly Hill, the Hill Truth. Man, that dude. So his last one, I mean, dude, I was hanging on every word, because he should call it just Wrestling 101 or Heels 101. I mean, but it's absolutely just fantastic. We've been on his show, he's been on our show, so we definitely support each other. And for the more podcasts, go listen non-wrestling, True Crime Cast, and Bless Their Hearts, just because we've kind of become friends with those guys. They support us, we support them. And go check out Dwaylon on Twitter at @fat_daddy73 and his YouTube and TikTok channels, Big and Fat. And I think I got everything.
Cubicle Chat.
And Cubicle Chat. That's wow. That's pretty sad. I forgot my Cubicle Chat podcast. That is my other non-wrestling podcast that I record on Wednesday nights and typically drop the show. That's only on audio right now, but maybe I'm gonna try to get it developed and where I can also do video as well, and have merch and all that. In fact, last night my daughter and we actually recorded an episode talking about horror movies.
Okay, cool.
And she will probably be on the show one more time before she goes down to Orlando.
Yeah.
So we're trying to time that out, and we got to get you back on the show probably at least one more time before we take her down to Orlando as well. But it's just good time. We talk about pop culture. We talk about all sorts of other things. I mean, because last time Dwaylon was on the show, we talked about life without the internet. And we talked about bands that may or may not be overrated.
Led Zeppelin.
No. Anyway, I'm trying to think of a band that that I think is overrated that you didn't. I can't think of any.
Right, can't think of one. I mean, we agreed on most of the ones, but most of the ones that we both thought were unrated, that were overrated. I think Zeppelin was the only one we disagreed on.
I believe so. Yeah, and because that's actually what started the conversation anyway.
Yeah.
But so, and in case anybody was wondering, okay, my first co-host on the show, Kyle, he had to step down. He had a lot of stuff going on in his life, and he was wearing himself thin. I mean, he really was. I mean, because when he does something, I mean, he gives it his all. He gives 100%.
Yep.
If you ever see his weightlifting stuff, you know that he's actually I know in West Virginia, he's gone to competitions there, and he's won the competitions. He's got state. Yeah,
I was going to ask, hasn't he won several weightlifting competitions?
Yes, I mean, he set state records, and so in his job, I know he gives 100%. I used to work with him, so I know he gives 100%. At everything he does. And mathematically, because I've done this myself, you cannot give 100% without.
Yeah.
You'll end up wearing yourself down, and that's what was happening. And he regrettably, he had to make a choice, and he ended up stepping down. And it was really for his health. I mean, when it comes down to it.
Yeah.
So, and so I was kind of in the need. I was like, I would need a co-host, and I mean, I can try to do it solo. I'll give it a shot unless I get somebody. And Dwaylon said, "You know what? I'm available now."
Yeah.
And he said, "So I'm available for the next couple of weeks. We'll see." And then first shows went great. And he told me later on he was extremely nervous, and I'm like, I couldn't tell.
Yeah, I was nervous those first couple of episodes.
Yeah, and Kyle has actually listened, and he's actually given Dwaylon a lot of props, and he said he's glad that you came on. And one day we're going to have Kyle back on. We're going to have everybody, on at least one episode. We're going to have all three of us.
Yeah. Okay. Sounds good.
Yep. Don't know when. They're trying to work out details.
Because,
like I said, he is still a very busy man.
Yeah.
He's also part of a flag football team.
Oh, okay.
And he was texting me yesterday telling me about it. They were in the middle of playoffs. Or I think he has a playoff game like this weekend. So we'll have to see, when we can get all of our schedules to line up.
Right.
But I would like to get it done because you and Kyle have never actually met, not even on Zoom. So that'll be the thing. Hey, Dwaylon, Kyle Dwaylon. All right, and then we can talk all the wrestling.
Yeah.
So, but like I was saying before, this has been a very eventful year. We've had so many interviews. And if I had to count the number of shows, number of episodes you've done, I know it's over 100.
Wow.
There's only been a couple that you've missed, a handful of interviews, and then one just, it was like in the very beginning. And I actually had Randy.
Yeah.
That was one he actually stood in for the co-host.
Mm-hmm.
And, but yeah, the interviews, I mean, have been, there for a while. I mean, it was like every episode we were doing interviews.
Yeah.
And that, it got to the point it's like, we don't have an interview. What do we do now? We were almost at a loss of what to do.
Yeah. I mean, we've had some great interviews too,
Yeah.
A lot of the, the NWF stars we've had, we got to interview Chris Harris. We got to interview Buck Bagwell. We've had, a lot of great interviews.
Yeah. And I mean, I cannot say we've had a bad interview.
Mm-mm.
I mean, and I will say there's some that I would put like close to the top as far as like some of our favorites. Buff Bagwell, Chris Harris are definitely,
oh yeah,
two heavy hitters. I mean, so they gotta. I mean, and both interviews were just absolutely awesome. Buff, granted, the first 30 minutes of Buff Bagwell's interview was, so Buff, how did you start? And then like the next 30 minutes we were both like,
yeah.
So, and one of my favorite parts of the interview was when he was talking about when he came home, his nephew and some of his friends were like on the big screen TV and they were playing in WCW NW Revenge. He said, and I look up on the screen and there's 4 of me.
Yeah.
I was like, what is going on? And he, oh yeah, hi Uncle Mark. Yeah, we played this game. We're like, what? And then he said, like the next day, a check came in the mail for like $40,000, and it was because of that game.
Yeah.
I mean, and I'm thinking, we're in the wrong business.
I know, right?
And then I met him. And well, we interviewed him, I believe, on Monday. We interviewed Chris Harris on the Wednesday.
Mm-hmm.
I went to the big Fan Fest event in Chillicothe, Ohio, on that Saturday, where I actually met Buff. Got the picture that he autographed, to you. Even though it took me like 2 months to send it to you, but
no, that's fine.
but because right after that was all the big forecast stuff was happening. I mean, I was at work. I mean, I was like, wasn't even leaving I mean, they were buying lunch for us in some cases. Yeah, so work got extremely busy. So finally, one day I was like, do I not have anything going on right now at lunch? All right, I'm going to go over here to mailbox, etc. Because there's a office right there by us. So now finally I was able to mail that to you. But met Buff and Kurt Angle and Ricky Steamboat. Got the hold on. Let me get it. Where's it at? Oh, where is my belt? Oh no. Don't tell me my
oh, your belt's gone.
My belt's gone. It's in here somewhere.
Somebody stole the championship.
There it is. No, I was cleaning up in here or straightening up here this weekend and moved it. But yeah, I bought this belt. And
for those of you on audio, that is Steve's replica of the NWA World Title signed by Wildfire Tommy Rich.
Yep, the gold dome, the 10 pounds of gold. To me, this is the belt to have. This indicates world champion. I don't know why I have it, but and I got to thinking about it. Out of all the people that held that particular belt, and I think we discussed this, there's only like 2 other people, maybe 3, besides Wildfire Tommy Rich, that actually held that particular belt that are still alive.
Yep.
Because Flair, and I'm pretty sure if I were to get him to sign it, he'd probably charge me like $800.
Oh yeah, he's going to charge you an arm and a leg. So yeah.
Terry Funk, whose birthday is today, by the way. I saw that earlier. Yep. So happy birthday, Terry Funk. Yeah. For anybody out there, if you know Terry Funk, tell him we said happy birthday.
Yeah.
And Dory didn't hold this belt. Because Dory lost it to Harley. He lost the title to Harley Race, and that was back in the late 60s.
And that's when they introduced that one. That's right. Yeah.
Briscoe, Jack Briscoe, or is
Jack
it?
still?
Oh, which actually
Jack is still alive. Jack's dead. Gerald's still alive.
it was Jack who held the belt though.
Yeah, Jack
So,
was the because it had a when Jack had it, it actually had a red strap.
Ew.
Yeah, it just looked weird. I saw a picture
Yeah.
of him. I saw a picture of him wearing it, and it had a red strap, and I'm like, "What belt is that?" And I looked, and it was the NWA World Title. I don't know why the strap was red.
Well, they need to cut that out.
Yeah,
It's supposed to have a black. It's supposed to have a black strap. That's
yeah.
the NWA TV title has a red strap. That was cool.
Yeah. But yeah, I think it's just Tommy Rich, Terry Funk, and Ric Flair that are still alive that held that version of the NWA World Title.
Yeah, and we're talking of the original before, before the big gold.
Yeah, before Big Gold. Yeah,
the one you have, and see,
yeah.
See right about now, that's your cue to get your big gold, and
so, it is.
Oh, there it is,
right here. There.
See, you need to get the nameplate that says Dwaylon.
I know, right?
Not even just
that's the bad thing, though. You can't on this one. You can't remove the nameplate. It's just a solid thing. Yeah,
so you'd have to bring it to like a you know what? You can bring it to like a trophy engraver.
Yeah.
And see if they could do it. I mean, they may not want to touch it. They may go.
Ooh. I don't know, but yeah, I have Big Gold. Steve's got the Dome belt.
Yeah, and the next one I want to get, honestly, well, there's a couple on my list. I want to get the Mid Atlantic title, the one with the states on there, because that's to me, I always love that belt. The AWA World title with the jewels on it.
Yeah.
And in fact, the guy I bought the NWA title from, he also had one of those, and it was bad enough I was going to get punched in the face as soon as I got home. For one, believe me,
I'm sure you got the look as soon as you came through the door with it.
Oh, she already knew because my son.
Did he rat you out?
Oh, he ratted me out.
Oh, he ratted you out.
And I was like, I'm about to make you walk home.
Yeah, I'm about to leave you here, buddy.
Yeah, I don't know who you are anymore. Because my wife texted me, "You bought a belt? How much you pay for the belt?" I'm like, "Yep." How much? Yeah, I sure did.
Yeah,
I bought the belt.
So, yeah, I've got two. My wife bought me. For those on video, I also have this one, the current WWE Championship belt. Not the universe.
You know what? I noticed on the bottom that says World Heavyweight Champion.
Yeah.
For some reason, WWE, they just refer to it as the WWE Champion, and they don't want to call it a World Champion. That makes zero sense to me.
Yeah, but then when they talk about how many titles somebody has held, they'll say World Champion. Like they'll say like John Cena is a 16-time World Champion. But when you talk about the individual belt, it's the WWE title. So it's like it makes no sense.
But then the Universal title. Now it's like which one?
Yeah, it's like
outranks the other. And I think that kind of depends on who's holding it.
Exactly, just like the World Heavyweight title, the importance of it depending on who held it, which is not how it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be important regardless. But
I know
my wife bought me the WWE title for our anniversary a couple of years ago. We were at this place in Evansville, Indiana. It was like a peddler's mall type thing.
Okay.
It was called Looky Looky. They have all kinds of stuff like collectibles and furniture, like literally everything. And it was in a case. And so she bought me that for our anniversary because we were in Evansville spending our anniversary weekend in Evansville because we like going there. And then I ordered the Big Gold belt online. I told her about it before I ordered it, and she's like, "It's a little steep for a belt, but okay." And so she said okay, so I clicked. Right. Yeah, it's like you said okay. So
okay. You can change your mind later on.
Exactly. And I've got two more. There's several that I want, but the main two that I want is like the classic Intercontinental title, and then I want the the NWA World Television title with the red strap and
because that one's just cool looking.
Yeah, and with the network logos and stuff on it.
Oh, it is a network. I never thought about that.
Yeah.
Because it's got the red strap and it's silver with like red, kind of red banners, like metal. They're metal, but because that was the one that, of course, when Dusty, he won the TV title, and then that all of a sudden it became the world television title.
Yeah.
And that's when they got the new belt.
Yep.
And of course, when he lost it, it was just a television title again. He got it again. It's the world television. It's like, dude, seriously.
Yeah, because he got it, and then he ended up losing it to Tully. And then Tully lost it back to him. And then Arn stole it.
Yeah, he did. That was awesome.
Arn stole it, defended it while he stole it, which was awesome. And then ended up having a match with Dusty officially and beat Dusty. And he was officially the champion.
Because at one point, Dusty stole it back.
Yeah, Dusty took it back.
Arn's doing the interview, and all of a sudden you saw a chair flying into the screen. Bam!
Yeah. And then Arn's like, he stole my property. And it's like, Arn, you stole it first, buddy. But I always loved how the Horsemen always flipped everything around.
Awesome. That's good heel work.
Exactly.
Ted'll tell you, that's good heel work.
But, and we've had a show in the last year talking about championship belts and which ones we liked and things like that. So there's a few more that I want. I really like the AWA, not AWA, the AEW World Title belt. I like how it looks.
Yeah,
that's a good looking belt. No, it's been a wild ride this year. I'm really proud of the shows that we've done. Talking about the women's movement in pro wrestling. I'm really proud of those shows. I'm proud of the shows that we've had talking to the different Black athletes on their experiences being a Black athlete in professional wrestling. Really like those shows. Really enjoyed the shows that we've had with Sinclair Octavius Bentley.
Yes.
Those were amazing. I mean, we were laughing through, the entire thing. And then, but when we had him on, because he wasn't able to be on,
he wasn't on the panel show.
The panel show that we had for Black History Month. So he came on later. And, we had fun on that show, but he's an extremely intelligent person. Extremely easy to have a conversation with.
Yep. And
just knowledgeable, not just about wrestling, but like life in general. Just extremely knowledgeable and just a pleasure to talk to.
Oh yeah.
I always enjoy having him on the show.
Because our conversations that we had with Sinclair, we would talk with him for a good 15 minutes at least.
Oh yeah.
Before we'd even start recording. And all of a sudden I'd be like, oh, we got to start recording at some point.
And then another 15, 20 minutes after we're done recording. Yeah.
And like you said, a very intelligent guy.
Yeah.
And the conversations were just engaging. He had us. I didn't know what to expect the first time we had him on, and this was before we were putting it to video.
Right.
It was audio. We could see each other, but it was still audio only.
Yeah.
He had us laughing so hard.
He did.
And I was like, okay, he's got to come back on again.
Oh yeah.
And then the next time we had him on, and this was the first for, in fact, this is the only time we've done this. So even though we've talked about doing other ones, and we've actually had people say, hey, can we do this? Oh yeah. Then it just didn't work out.
Yeah.
But we had him and Noah Gabriel on.
That was awesome. That was
the only show we've done where the entire show was kayfabe.
Yeah.
It was all part of the story.
Yep.
Now I will say, when cameras weren't rolling.
Oh yeah.
Other great conversations.
Yeah.
Noah's another guy. He's just very genuine.
Oh yeah. Especially, he is. If he listens to this, I don't want him to view this as me being an older guy, sounding condescending. But he is extremely mature for his age. Because he is a young guy. He's still young in the business, but he is wise beyond his years. He has a great head on his shoulder.
Oh, I've seen Noah being in the business a very long time.
Oh yeah,
in some capacity.
He's got the right attitude. He's got, the right work ethic. And he appreciates the position that he's in. And I feel like gets to be more of a rarity these days, of people actually appreciating the opportunity that's in front of them.
Yep. And one of the things I like about when we're doing the interviews is, that particular one where it was head to head, that was all, story.
Yeah.
But when we've had, any other time, including the panel show, when we had Joe Pro James, we had Matthew Mims, and we had Devin Graves on.
Yep.
We were, we may have been referring to them and addressing them by their wrestling names, but we were really talking to the person.
Yes. Yes.
And especially those shows, because that wasn't, hey, what is, big strong Mims, what is his experience? No, we're like, hey, Matthew,
what is Matthew's experience? Yeah.
Yep. And I will say this also about Matt Mims. He just makes us feel stupid, but in a good way, because
he is another one. He is extremely intelligent, tremendous vocabulary, and it's a pleasure speaking with him too.
It is. I'm writing down what he was saying. I'm going, I got to look that word up later. I have no idea. But I think he memorized the dictionary. I really do.
Joe Pro James, it was, great
awesome
talking
guy.
to him. Devin and I are friends. We knew each other, before the podcast, because we worked together. And great guy, and he was great having on the show. We've had him on a couple of times now, and we've had Big Mama on a couple of times. Always great talking to her. We've had Roger Ruffin on. It was awesome talking to him.
Yep.
He gave us the sneak peek of the
new NWF title.
The new NWF title. We were the first ones to see it.
That's right.
So that was awesome.
Yeah, I felt very privileged that
I did too.
He trusted us enough to say, hey, I want to show you guys this. And and just talking to him, learning one of his favorite moments of WrestleMania had nothing to do with wrestling. It had to do with him accompanying Reba McEntire to the ring.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that'd make me kind of nervous too.
Yeah.
It really would.
But we got to talk to someone who was in the ring, refereeing matches with legitimate legends. Shawn Michaels, Shawn Michaels, he was the referee for the Roddy Piper Bret Hart Intercontinental title match. Just that I can't imagine that experience alone. Just you're in there with legitimate, future at the time, future Hall of Famers and future legends of the business.
Yes.
Piper was already a legend,
and Bret Hart was on his way.
Bret was on his way.
He was on his way.
And he got to referee Shawn Michaels' match
and Shawn and Tito, the opening match.
Shawn and Tito, yep. And we know the type of Hall of Fame wrestler Shawn Michaels ended up being.
Yeah. And Tito was already.
Oh yeah, Tito was already a legend in the business. So.
And the match with Bret Hart and Roddy Piper, that WrestleMania, I think if you were to look at a list, I dare say that was probably considered the best match on the card.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because even bumping up against Flair and Savage, which was also a really good match. But I'll take the Bret and Roddy match. And Roddy really usually didn't give you good matches because he was a brawler.
Yeah, he gave you a good fight, but he usually didn't give you good matches. But it's like he really stepped it up that time.
He did. And somehow they missed Bret blading.
Bret was a master at blading. Bret could do it like a magician. And he could blade and then convince. He was always able to convince the higher ups that he got busted open the hard way because nobody ever saw him blade.
Right.
So they couldn't prove that he did it.
Unlike Flair,
who just laid his head wide open.
I didn't blade.
I didn't blade. Dude, the blade's in your hand. Your forehead's just flapping open. What are you doing?
You left part of the blade. It's stuck in there.
But Bret knew exactly where to do it and he didn't have to do it deep. He just had to do it enough.
That's
and
all it had
then,
to be. It was just a little bit of a nick.
All you gotta do is do a nick, and then your opponent applies some pressure, and there you go.
Yep.
So, Brett was a master of getting color for matches. I kind of miss that in WWE. It's like they're so hell bent on not having any blood, but then it kind of takes away because, like, okay, Cody and Seth Rollins inside Hell in a Cell should have had blood.
Hell in a Cell is a match. I'm about ready to say every Hell in a Cell match should have blood.
Because it's supposed to be a feud ender. You're trapped in this giant box of metal. You get thrown into it, but you don't bleed. People rub your head into the cage, but you don't bleed. No. If you need an example of how a cage is used, watch Dynamite from last night, where they had the blood and guts match. Fantastic. It was fantastic. That's how you use it. A lot of people were bleeding. It was all believable because that was the whole point of the match. You're trapped in. It's basically War Games without calling it War Games.
I've heard that, from other reviews. I have not watched it yet because I have a DVR. But I've heard that last night's Dynamite was essentially a pay-per-view on free TV.
Yes.
It was that good a quality.
It was that good. Yeah. Yeah. Because the blood and guts match alone, they gave it the last hour of Dynamite. So the last hour was blood and guts. But everything before that, you had the opening match was Orange Cassidy versus Ethan Page. That's a pay-per-view caliber match right there. And it was really good. They set up some stuff for Rampage and next week's Dynamite. But yeah, it was a pay-per-view quality show on free TV.
It's kind of funny you mentioned Orange Cassidy right after we started. We were talking about interviewing Roger Ruffin. Do you follow Roger on Twitter?
Yeah, okay, I saw that. Yeah,
Roger's apparently not a fan of Orange Cassidy.
He is not a fan of Orange Cassidy putting his hands in his pockets.
He said, I was watching, it was good until, they put their hands in their pockets. It actually took me a second to realize what he was talking about. I was like, oh.
As soon as I saw that, I'm like, well, he's watching Orange Cassidy.
Yeah, I was like, he must be talking about Orange Cassidy because that's the only one. And I'll be honest, it actually took a little bit for Orange Cassidy to grow on me.
That's how I was because I wasn't familiar with Orange Cassidy. Like, I'd never seen any of his indie stuff. And because he was big, he was huge on the indie scene. And then my first exposure to him was when he came into AEW. And it took a little bit for me to kind of warm up to him. But the dude can wrestle. I mean, and the gimmick has grown on me too, because it's like he just comes in there, he gives you the thumbs up, and it's like, this dude isn't about anything. And then the bell rings, and he's wrestling. He is. And he is really wrestling out there, and it's like, honestly, the way AEW is structured, it wouldn't bother me one bit to one day see Orange Cassidy as the AEW World Champion.
I could see him holding, was it the TV title first?
The TNT Championship.
Yeah, the TNT Championship.
But and working up. But
and then working up. Yeah, I can't see them automatically giving the big title.
Yeah.
Because his gimmick.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, can you follow? Would it work? Okay, let's put this other title on it first to see how that works out. But I mean, I think he could eventually get that title, and he could be like an AEW Grand Slam champion.
Oh, definitely, yeah. Because I mean, and you talk about over, he is. If any wrestler wants an example of what people talk about being over, watch an Orange Cassidy entrance.
Yeah,
and he doesn't have to do anything. His music hits, he walks out on that stage and stands there, and the crowd is losing their mind.
And when sometimes he may not even have his hands in his pockets yet, but when he goes like this, as soon as he has his hands up,
as soon as he makes the pocket motion, the crowd erupts. And I mean, that speaks to his talent of getting that type of gimmick over.
And think about it, this must have taken a lot of practice to be able to do the moves he does with his hands in his pockets.
His hands in his pockets, yeah, because I mean he's throwing Hurricane Ranas with his hands in his pockets. Yeah.
Doing nip ups, hands in his pockets.
Yeah, he's doing nip ups. He's doing like shotgun drop kicks out of the corner with his hands in his pockets.
And of course the nip up is because he pretty much has to if he wants to leave his hands in his pockets. So he he must have some serious core muscles too.
Yeah, he's got to.
Yeah.
But
doing the tope suicide or what the thing, either through the ropes or over the top rope with his hands in his pockets.
Yep.
And so that's when I first saw the hands in the pockets. Yeah, I was like, who's this clown?
That's what I thought. I'm like, who's this goofy dude? And it's like, but the more I watched him, and the more
I was impressed.
The more he started to wrestle, the more I got impressed with him. I'm proud to say I'm an Orange Cassidy fan.
Yeah, it's the slacker gimmick.
Yeah.
And he even had Sting doing it because when he was kicking in the kind of like kicking the shins, and Sting was doing the same thing.
I love the entrance when they introduce him and they're like, weighing whatever from wherever. Yeah, like wherever.
So he's different, and I get why Roger really doesn't care for him, because Roger is very old school, and
he's Roger's he's more of a traditionalist, and I get that, and I absolutely respect that. In a lot of ways, I'm traditionalist too. There are things about wrestling that I think this is how it should be, just out of respect for the business. Like your champion coming out last. Yes. I do not care what the other person's interest. I don't care if it's the Undertaker's interest. He comes out first if he's challenging for a title. It's just you should show that respect for the championship.
Yeah, and they always, one of their biggest sayings now, and even JR says it, oh, the belt is a prop. Okay. The physical belt might be a prop if you want to go down that road.
What it represents is not a prop.
Yeah.
What it represents is that promoter has entrusted you to carry that company. Like right now in AEW, Tony Khan has entrusted Jon Moxley to carry that company. And honestly, I don't think there was a better choice for an interim world champion right now than Jon Moxley, because Jon Moxley carried that company through the pandemic.
Yep. Yes.
And he showed that he was able to put that company on his back and carry it through, uncertain times. So who better to carry it through another uncertain time period in AEW when the official world champion is out injured? So Jon Moxley is the current champion, and that's AEW shows a lot more respect for their championships though than WWE does. Like last night at Blood and Guts, everybody made their entrances. Moxley was last. Moxley was the world champion. He was the last one to come out.
The champion. And we say this every time we've done a review of a WWE pay-per-view. And I mean, and one of the reasons I was at the text, you watching it live or you recording?
Yeah.
Because I'm about to text. The champion comes out live.
Exactly. It's like I don't get how, and the thing is with WWE, it's like they do it depending on who the champion is. But they've even had Roman come out first. Like I think
if it's Brock challenging.
Yeah, if it's Brock challenging, I think that they had him that way when he wrestled Goldberg.
Oh,
Goldberg got the last entrance because he's got all the pyro and all that stuff, and it's like I don't care. Roman's the champion. Roman comes out last.
Yeah,
and even if it's a champion that I don't like, that I don't particularly agree with, that they should be champion. Respect for the championship and respect for that person being the champion. They should come out last.
And the first time I remember seeing it backwards, and actually it was The Undertaker. He was the challenger, and it was Yokozuna at Royal Rumble 94.
Yep. And Yokozuna was the champion, but they had him come out first because Undertaker and all the spectacle of his entrance. And it's like, I don't care.
Yeah.
He let him do his entrance and come out, but he should have been in the ring waiting for the champion, not the champion waiting on him.
Exactly. And, so maybe that's one of the things that we would change. We're armchair booking that. We would.
Yeah.
Champion always comes out last. Yeah. Or if you have champion versus champion, the higher tier champion.
Say you've got a world champion versus an intercontinental champion. Intercontinental Champion comes out first, because
Exactly.
they are just a step down from, as far as championships, they are number 2.
Right. So establish that hierarchy, fellas,
Mm-hmm.
and listen to me and Dwaylon. So if anybody out there, if you know the people in WWE or even AEW for that matter, but I think AEW is actually doing it right.
Yeah.
Tell them they need to come listen to us.
Yep.
Tell them we're on all the platforms. And if they listen on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, give us a 5-star rating.
Give us a rating. Tell us what you think.
Yeah, tell us what you think. Give us a review. We need to know these things.
Yeah.
But speaking of WWE, I just want to throw the news item that I saw. Was it last night? And I meant to text you, but I don't know what I was doing that I wasn't able to text. But I know what it was. Tawana came back home. She was on, her thing with her friend, and Avery and I recorded.
Right.
When I saw Logan Paul has signed with WWE.
Yeah, I saw that. I actually saw that this morning, and I meant to text you, and I forgot. And I was just staring at the article, like, they've made a bigger deal about Logan Paul signing with WWE than they have a lot of actual wrestlers that have come in.
Yes.
It's like, okay, I get. Yes, he defied expectations at WrestleMania. I was not expecting
he did
to be as good as he was. He is a much better athlete than I initially gave him credit to be. But at the same time, you are releasing people. You've just now slowed down. I mean, you were on a rapid clip of releasing people.
Yes.
Talented, world-traveled professional wrestlers. But then you sign Logan Paul, who has absolutely no wrestling experience. WrestleMania was his first and only match he has ever had in pro wrestling. And you signed him to a long-term deal, which I'm sure was big money, because Logan Paul is a good businessman. He's not going to walk into anything if he's not making big money from it. I agree. I was telling Steve this earlier. I was reading on Twitter. I follow Michael Sidgwick. He is with What Culture. And he said, basically to paraphrase, he said WWE just needs to start hiring celebrities who take the wrestling kind of like Logan Paul did, because WWE doesn't push its own stars. They don't know how to make stars anymore. And they're more concerned about celebrity and the mainstream attention than they are pushing the wrestling product. And I completely agree with him, because that's where it's come. And like Steve said, they're all about the E in WWE instead of the W that's in the middle that stands for wrestling. As Arn Anderson would say, it says wrestling on the marquee. Yeah. It doesn't say entertainment on the marquee. The entertainment is supposed to come from the wrestling. Yeah. Not the wrestling being a byproduct of the entertainment.
Yeah, because they're having the wrestling there to kind of push the storylines instead of the storylines pushing the matches.
Yep.
And it's another one of them cases, I think, and we've said this before, but it keeps holding true. They are not looking at the mistakes that WCW was doing, which caused WCW to fold, and WWE or WWF at the time buying them out in 2001. And if they really, because they still have it in their mind that, the reason WCW fell because we beat them. No, they beat themselves. You just happen to be, doing things right, but you weren't doing anything super spectacular at the time.
No, because by the time WWE really got in a position to challenge WCW, it was, halfway through 97 when Austin got really hot. And because The Rock hadn't become The Rock just yet.
He was
almost there, but he hadn't become what we know as The Rock now. So Austin got hot, which was putting WWF at the time back on the map. But WCW was still hot because the NWO angle was still going hot. by the time WWE got in a position to really, really challenge them was 98 when everything was clicking.
Yep.
Yeah. But by then, WCW, the cracks had already started to show in WCW in like mid 98 because they took the NWO concept too far, and a third of the roster were members of WCW.
Yeah.
And then they ignored everybody else except the NWO. You had the Radicals, Benoit, Malenko, Saturn, Guerrero. You had them on your roster. They get ignored. You've got the cruiserweights. They get ignored.
Yeah, Jericho.
You got Jericho. He gets ignored. The NWO, Flair, Sting, Luger. It was the old guard. It was the old guard and the NWO that were getting all the focus, and nobody else was getting any. WWE finds themselves in those same shoes now.
Mm-hmm.
It is the old guard, that are getting all the shine, so to speak, and the newer talent that can carry that company for years to come is getting put on the back burner.
And the sad thing is, Roman is somewhere in between if you really look at it, because he's too experienced to be new, but he's not old enough yet to be part of.
He hasn't been there long enough to be the old guard,
right? But
Brock is definitely the old guard,
which makes us feel old because I remember when Brock started.
Right. Orton's part of the old guard.
Mm-hmm. Another one. Cena's
part of the old guard. Goldberg, whenever they decide to, pull him out of mothballs.
Yeah, he'll come in, have 3 matches, one to be for the world title. He'll win the world title, he'll defend it once, and then he'll lose it.
Yep. Pretty much.
Yep. And and then he may hurt somebody like legitimately.
Yeah.
Yep. That's why the Undertaker, when they were in Saudi Arabia, the Undertaker even just looked like didn't even care who saw him with that look. He was like,
no, because he was just disgusted.
Yeah.
But it's like, and people get mad at AEW for hiring quote unquote ex WWE people, like these people didn't work somewhere else before WWE. But
yeah,
the core of AEW is still younger talent, because you got to think the Young Bucks are just in their early 30s.
Yeah.
And they've been wrestling since I think they were like 15 years old. And these guys are only in their early 30s and are one of the best tag teams ever. I mean,
yeah,
they're already in that. For me, they're already in that top 10 best tag teams ever.
And they're also part of the executives of AEW.
Yeah.
So I mean, they've got good wrestling minds.
Exactly, and they're 2 of the founders of AEW. They're the World Tag Team Champions. Jade Cargill, who is just a phenomenon,
Mm-hmm.
I think she's 34-0 now, is the TBS champion. John Moxley is the interim AEW champion. CM Punk's the official champion. People don't get that you need that balance. You need the balance of experienced people and newer people, because that way you get fresh matches, because you're not getting the same match every single week. The younger people are getting that, they're getting that experience wrestling against these world traveled athletes.
Yep.
And like, I personally don't have any issue with anybody that they picked up from WWE, because I mean, why would you not? It makes business wise, why would you not sign Claudio or Athena or Ruby Soho or Christian Cage or William Regal, who is just an absolute genius wrestling mind.
Absolutely.
I mean, I've been watching wrestling since I was 5 years old, and I still learn something new every time William Regal is on commentary. It's just, and he gives you that, just the little things, like talking like an elbow to the jaw. He's like, you put your point of the elbow right here, and he tells you exactly where to put it, and he tells you the reason why you put it there, and it's like he legitimizes everything that these wrestlers are doing. You can tell that he, as a former wrestler, you can tell he appreciates everything they're doing.
Mhm.
He's wanting people to understand the moves, the reasons for the moves, the effects of the moves, and
Yep.
it's just things like that. And it's like, it's just some companies do that. I think just AEW is really probably, them and New Japan are probably the best at it right now. Just explaining things and having enough respect for these wrestlers to, like Joey Styles said one time he said this on a sort of a pipe bomb promo on Raw. He said that in WWE, he didn't even get to call the moves, the holds that the wrestlers were applying. He's like, I have to call them superstars, and I have to be sure I'm a storyteller instead of describing what's actually happening in the ring. And I feel like AEW and New Japan both do a really good job of describing what's happening in the ring. And that description, for me, that description alone creates the story.
Mm-hmm.
They're telling you why these wrestlers are doing what they're doing in the ring with the moves, and that's what's building the story.
And one thing about William Regal that I think most wrestling fans know this, but non-wrestling fans probably don't know this. William Regal, he's a shooter.
Oh yeah, definitely.
I mean, he is.
Yeah, I mean, he started in the carnivals in England.
Mm-hmm.
You know, as a shooter. Yeah, he's a definite shooter. Yeah.
And for those who don't know what a shooter is somebody who can legitimately wrestle, as in like amateur wrestling, but they can put these holds on you that will make you hurt.
Yeah.
And that's because he basically got fired from WCW because he made Goldberg look bad. It's like, no, Goldberg's lack of talent made him look bad.
Exactly. And he was told to go out there and give Goldberg a competitive match.
Yeah.
That's what he did. Goldberg couldn't keep up.
And he still put Goldberg over.
Yeah. Yeah, he still put him over. He sold everything Goldberg gave him. And he put him over, and still gets fired when he goes backstage because he made Goldberg look bad. No, make your boys step up.
Yeah. You know, and
you can't put Goldberg in the ring with a legitimate wrestler like William Regal and expect Regal to just flop around like a jobber.
Exactly. And so Regal went to WWE and was that when he became the man's man or
whatever? Yeah, he's a man. Yeah, that cracked me up. But he didn't have that gimmick long, and then he had some personal stuff going on and ended up getting let go. But William Regal is, if it wasn't for his personal issues, William Regal should have been the WWE champion at some point.
Mm-hmm. And he had some personal demons. He also had some personal health problems.
Yep.
In fact, he'll even admit, he's lucky to be alive with some of the stuff that's happened to him, like in the past year.
Yeah.
You know, he talked about it on Jericho's podcast, which is another podcast. If y'all get a chance, go check that out, because Jericho also does a lot of non-wrestling stuff. So his is just his podcast is just all over the place.
Yeah.
His is actually where I first heard about True Crime Cast. You know, and those are the guys that are out of Eastern Kentucky.
Right.
And because I'm listening to their accents going, they got to be from somewhere in Kentucky. And then I started listening and figured, I was like, okay, they're from Berea. And then, you know, I actually contacted them. And I mentioned, I live in this little town, 30 miles east of Cincinnati called Mount Orb. And they said, oh, we know some people in Mount Orb. I'm like, what? I said, what are the names? I said, even if I don't know them, I said, because I'm not originally from them, my wife might know them. And they told me the names, and it's these twins. One who lives in Berea now, the other one lives up here.
Oh, okay.
They're a year younger than my wife.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And so they actually, and so I was like, oh, so they know these two. And my wife is friends with them, and these girls, their niece graduated with my daughter.
Oh,
so it's this weird thing, and I found out about it by
Yeah.
listening to Jericho's podcast. Now they've been on Jericho's podcast 3 times now, and he's actually been on their podcast. So maybe we could talk to them and have Jericho come on our podcast.
Hey,
I would, and also speaking of the comparisons between early 2000 WCW, because that was the last of WCW, was just early 2000s WCW, and today, I'll compare Logan Paul to David Arquette.
Yes.
And but David Arquette, they brought him in just to promote Ready to Rumble, which, by the way, if you ever get a chance to watch Ready to Rumble, you pass on that, because that is about 2 hours of your life you will never get back.
Never get back. Yeah, that is a fresh skip. You ever come across that on your streaming service? Scroll past it. Don't even stop. Don't even watch the trailer. Don't even read the synopsis. Just keep going, because it's awful. But what I will do is give David Arquette all the respect in the world, though. He did not want to win the title.
He didn't.
He said, I have no business holding this title. But, of course, they hotshotted the title onto him because they wanted the mainstream push. He gave all of his pay that he made as the world champion, he donated to charity. And then he really got into wrestling and actually trained. And he's still wrestling on the indies now.
He's like a deathmatch guy.
Yeah. So I will give him all the respect in the world, because he understood. He had more respect for that championship than the higher ups in the company that he was working for at the time.
And hey, WWE, check it out.
Yeah.
History will repeat itself if you choose to
will.
ignore it. And
I was thinking of something else, that when I first started as a like a guest co-host on the podcast, John Moxley was AEW World Champion.
Yeah, he was.
And
that's right.
And
we've
now
kind of come full circle.
We've come full circle, because now he's the interim world champion.
And
so that's pretty cool. And I think that not too long after that, Punk debuted. And now Punk's actually the official world champion, but he's out injured. He got injured. Yeah, he had surgery. He had a broken foot.
And one difference with Moxley now from last year, he's now a dad and he's sober.
Yep.
And that is a huge deal. That's not a joke. I'm not, he is, that was a big deal, and he was man enough, adult enough to say, you know what, I got a problem. And he was, courageous enough to say, I got a problem. And he was gone for about 90 days?
About 90 days. I think he was in about 3 months he was gone. Then he came back, had a really good promo, and he was open about, his issues and everything. And then, of course, Bully Ray had to get on and talk about how Moxley owed the fans an apology and all this.
I'll be honest with you. We try not to talk negative about wrestling. I'm starting to really not like Bully Ray too much.
Yeah, every time he opens his mouth on Bustin' Open Radio, something stupid comes out.
Yeah.
Just being honest. Yes, he is a legend in this in this business. Yes, he's a 2-time world champion in TNA. But still, a lot of the stuff that he talks about is it's like, Bully, you're a little out of your depth.
Yeah. And
then Booker T's another one. I respect Booker T for everything he's done in pro wrestling. But a lot of his takes here lately, I'm becoming not a fan of Booker T either. Because it's like, he's body shaming Adam Cole, because he's been on his podcast talking about how we got to get some muscle on this kid, and he's too small, and blah 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 blah. Eddie Kingston got on Twitter and came to Adam Cole's defense and said that everybody who's on here body shaming Adam Cole, talking about how he's small and everything, he's like, 1, you wished you were in the kind of shape that Adam Cole is in. 2, you wish you had the kind of cardio that Adam Cole has. He said, and 3, you wish you had the girlfriend that Adam Cole has.
There you go.
He's like, but Adam Cole is an amazing professional wrestler. He's like, and a lot of you guys that are trying to make fun of him just because he's not, a 350-pound musclehead could not hang 30 seconds in the ring with him. He's like, and that goes for fans on Twitter, and that goes for so-called legends in this business that have something to say too.
Yep. And you look at some of the legends that nobody would dispute their legends. Harley Race was not a body guy.
No. But Harley Race was one of the toughest people in the history of wrestling. If Andre the Giant is afraid of you,
that says something.
You're a tough dude.
I mean, Harley Race, he beat polio.
Yeah.
Seriously, who beats polio?
Yeah.
Harley Race beat polio.
Mm-hmm.
And one time he broke his neck and he held, in a car wreck, he held onto his, it was him. Yeah. And I think Danny Hodges actually did the same thing. He was another one that was just like double tough. And it's like, Harley Race, I mean, you look at him, you're like, that dude, the guy with the gut.
Yeah.
Dusty Rhodes, definitely not a body guy.
No. Here's my thing. Wrestling has put too much emphasis on the physique of a pro wrestler and not the talent.
Right.
And I feel like some of that started, honestly, I'm not putting the blame here, but I feel like superstar Billy Graham kind of started that. It kind of started with him, and then other guys kind of adopted it but took it way too far. Superstar Billy Graham knew this part of it's only going to get me so far. The look and he could talk. The look and the talking can only get me so far. I've got to be able to do it in the ring, which he could.
Yeah.
But then your Hogans and your Lugers and guys like that,
it became too much.
Yeah.
Too many.
Yeah. It's like you've got $1 million body, but what can you do between the ropes? Because that's what I'm paying to see. Exactly. I'm not paying to see the $1 million body. I'm paying to see the $1 million wrestling.
Okay. Yeah, superstar Billy Graham, Jesse Ventura when he came out, same thing. I mean, but he patterned. Billy Graham.
He patterned after Billy Graham. Billy Graham was the mold for your Jesse Ventura, your Hulk Hogan, even your Scott Steiner down the line.
And one we're almost forgetting about because his work in the ring actually overshadowed it was Ricky Steamboat. He was actually a body guy.
Yeah, he was actually in tremendous shape, but he was so good in the ring that you never thought about that.
Yeah. Flair really never thought of Flair as a body guy, but he was definitely in good shape.
Oh yeah, he was in good shape. And like cardio wise, just amazing cardio.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a guy who's doing, 60-minute classics on the house show loop.
Yeah.
And
twice a day sometimes.
Twice a day, and then up half the night partying. And then still turn around and go back and do another 60-minute match the next day.
Yeah. And but Flair, nobody thought of Flair as a body guy.
Nobody thought of Arn and Tully as body guys.
Yeah, but they were definitely in shape.
They were definitely in shape, but they thought of them as great pro wrestlers, which they were. And that's the important thing.
And the Hogans and even the Billy Grahams, but I mean, Billy Graham, he was, like you said, he was kind of the beginning of that.
Yeah.
But you can't have everybody doing that. I think that's one of the things about WWE is if something will work, just like, well, let's give them all that.
Yeah. If something works, it's like, okay, copy and paste. We're just going to keep doing it. And like, for every John Cena, there's a, I'm trying to think of a name. There was a Nathan Jones, who was a big dude, who was jacked.
Yeah.
Could not wrestle his way out of a paper bag.
Was he the one? He was supposed to be the Undertaker's partner at the WrestleMania in Seattle.
Yep.
And he was that bad. They're like,
yeah.
Oh, the Undertaker's going to have a handicap match because Nathan Jones is injured.
Yeah. No, it's because Nathan Jones was green as grass and was not improving at all. And they had to scrap it. And he just did a run-in at the end of the match. But yeah. And like him, there's another guy, Luther Reigns, Matt Morgan, bunch of guys like that. They were huge, jacked guys, but they couldn't do anything in between the ropes.
But yet well, we'll see what happens now that Vince is stepped down.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, we'll have to see. Because like I said, at Wolf of Wall Street, I'm going to quit the movie like every episode from now on. I'm going to have some kind of reference to Wolf of Wall Street when Jordan Belfort in real life, when he was supposed to step down, and supposedly did, but he actually didn't. Yeah. He got in a lot of legal trouble because they said you were no longer CEO because he was defrauding people.
Yeah.
Same thing with Vince McMahon. I mean, he his money for hush money for a woman he was having an affair with, and that he gave her a pay raise on top of that, and then passed her to John Laurinaitis, that dumpster fire of a human being. And that, once again, not trying to be negative, but yeah, I'm not a fan.
I mean, there's being negative, and then there's just facts, and that's just the facts. John Laurinaitis is just a terrible human being.
Yeah, I mean, or as what you referred to him the other day, it's clown shoes. And I
clown
think
shoes.
That's what we'll refer to him as now on. Just like back in high school, I'm going to go way back. There was somebody who you referred to one time as what's his nose, and I picked up. I've been saying that ever since. About what's his nose over there.
Yeah, and I can't remember why I said that, but it came out and it stuck.
Oddly enough, I remember because there was a certain female that I really had a thing for, and we were friends. I was friends with her. Knowing now, I mean, she was like way out of my league. Even though we were, it was almost like a Pretty in Pink Ducky Andy situation.
Gotcha. Okay.
In fact, a lot of people actually said she kind of looked like Molly Ringwald, only different color hair. But it was somebody that she was kind of dating. And you referred to him as what's his nose. And I remembered that ever since. And by the way, I sent her an email not too long ago, just asking how she was doing, and she never responded. I'm like, okay,
right.
So but hey, whatever. But because I know one time she said, oh, because I told her you were the co-host, and she's, oh yeah, I love Dwaylon. Tell him I said hi. I was like, all right, cool. Just want to find out how she and her family doing, and nothing. But I mean, everybody's got the life, and so I want to tell her, look, I don't have a crush on you anymore. I mean, seriously.
Yeah, like I was just wondering how you been.
And but yeah, the whole what's his nose, but now we have clown shoes.
Yep.
And so that's what Dwaylon does. He comes up with good names for people. But one episode that we definitely need to mention was that entire week we had Buff, and then we had Chris Harris, and then I met Buff along with all the other ones. And then 2 days later, our most emotional episode ever, because 30 minutes before the show, before we started recording, and we actually debated on like, are we going to be able to get through this? We're like, okay, kind of calm down. It was when Scott Hall passed away.
Yep. Yeah.
Because I started out, I thought I was going to get it, and as soon as the words started to come out of my mouth, I couldn't do it, and I had to have you actually,
just
take control.
I still can't believe he's gone.
Yeah. And when I'm showing people, sometimes like here's some of the episodes that we've done, because I showed my neighbor the other day. Oh, actually, my friend of my neighbor's the other day, because he just happens to know Riley Matthews. He's actually good friend.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, he's good friends with her dad and her uncle. And I mentioned, I did her very first interview, and I showed him, and it's like, I said, there it is, and I saw scroll through the list, and there it is. The name of the episode is R.I.P. Scott Hall.
Yeah. And
it was, we had literally just found out that he had died.
Yeah. I was scrolling through, I've watched some of our YouTube shows, like with the kids.
Right.
And I was scrolling through there and came across the Scott Hall episode.
Yeah, if y'all ever want to see a 6'1", 300-pound fat man cry, there's your opportunity. Very beginning of that show, but that was probably the most emotional show. I think just because everything was that fresh.
Yeah,
and Scott Hall. We're talking about jacked up wrestlers. I mean, he was a jacked up dude too. I mean,
yeah, he was a big guy. He was in great shape, but I mean, he could go.
Yeah,
and he could wrestle with anybody.
And I will always remember him as Starship Coyote. That's what I first because that mustache he had was absolutely glorious. And once he shaved it, he never grew it back again.
No, he always, after that, he always had the stubble, the 5 o'clock shadow.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
the kind of Miami Vice,
Yeah.
Don
Yeah.
Johnson kind of stubble. Which that's a weird, like apparently got to use like a sideburn razor just to get that. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Just to keep it that way. It's like,
Yeah,
okay.
but and we had the one episode that it was actually posted, but then I immediately pulled it down um, before anybody really had a chance to download it because I had listened to it and I shouldn't have uploaded it. It was actually kind of an accident that I even uploaded it because when I was trying, I was like, okay, we can't put this out there because it was the one where we had all the
with the lag.
Yeah, the lag, and part of it was my router. I needed to reboot my router. I didn't realize it, but and then part of it is because also I was doing it all the way across the room from the router.
Oh yeah.
So then I moved closer, and now I'm actually in my office, and it gives me a little bit more privacy, so I don't have to worry about my son walking behind us going.
He cracked me up doing that though. I got to where I looked forward to him walking past because I knew he was going to do it eventually, and he'd walk by and just look at the camera like, "Hey guys,"
just like for a second, and then just keep walking.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, "You want to come inside and say hi?" No, I don't want to be on there. Sure, you don't.
Sure you don't.
Yeah,
it's like, but you're on. There you go, right there.
Yep. Now I have had him come on like once or twice. Just to come on and say, "Hey, just go and come say hi." And we had my daughter on one time because she was texting about something about watching like Twilight, and I was like, "Hold on." And because whatever it was we were doing, it was a very like uneventful episode anyway.
Yeah.
And she had her friend on there, and I was asking her friend, I was like, "Is she forcing you to watch Twilight?" and so we've had a few other unexpected guests. And if I really had to go through,
we had Alan. We had our friend Alan from high school. We had him on. We were watching the Undertaker Hulk Hogan Survivor Series match.
Yep, from '91. Yep. And if anybody was wondering why would we have a random person from high school, it wasn't random. What it was, Alan and I had watched that match live when it happened. We were at somebody's house who had satellite, and the big satellite with the little ones. I mean, but they actually had the pay-per-view there at this house. I couldn't even tell you whose house it was. It was like a friend of Alan's dad's. And Alan really didn't watch wrestling a lot. That was also the kind of odd thing, but it was me and Alan watching it. Dwaylon would have been there. However, he was, bettering himself at the University of Louisville, and you had not made it back.
Yeah, I hadn't made it back yet. Yeah.
So this was, 30 years later, almost like 30. Actually, you know what? It was 30 years to the day.
Yep. Yeah, it was.
So 30 years to the day later, we were able to all three watch it at the same time.
Yeah.
And that was also the last watch along we've done because we've since started doing videos, and I really don't feel like getting videos.
Not trying for Vince to be like,
and of course the weird thing, we would have to watch the stuff on YouTube anyway, because we've also found out, because that was actually the third watch along we did.
Yeah.
Found out that the WWE Network Peacock, and you have to pay for a more premium version in order to do watch alongs.
Yeah, they have the free tier, and then the one that we have that includes WWE Network, and it's called Peacock Premium. But then there's one more that you have to go up, and that allows you to screen share and all that stuff.
Yep, because I actually sent a message to Comrade Thompson just asking him what was going on, and he's the one who told me, "Oh yeah, you got to do this." And yeah, the Podfather, him, and he's up 9. Is it 9 now?
I believe it's 9. Yeah.
Let's see, because he already had 7. All right, he's got Pritchard. I name them all: Pritchard, Shivani, JR, Jeff Jarrett, Kurt Angle, Arn Anderson. Okay, I wasn't even counting right. Okay. Once again, let's see. Start over. Pritchard, Shivani, JR, Arn Anderson, Eric Bischoff, Kurt Angle, Jeff Jarrett. That's kind of a funny combination right there.
Yeah.
Matt Hardy, Mick Foley, that one just started, and Flair. So he's got
That's 10.
10.
Yeah.
And
And
I can't listen to them all now. I mean,
and I don't know if he's involved. I know Kevin Nash has got one. It's either out or coming out.
is it on the whole that his?
I don't know if Conrad's involved with that one or not.
See, the fun thing is Conrad hasn't really been the host,
Mm-hmm.
you know, because he's like the host of all of them, which
Yeah.
is odd because, you know, but the star is the other person.
Yeah.
But it's actually been somebody else who's been.
Oh, okay.
At least Arn. The one I don't miss at all is Arn Anderson. You know, I catch that one every single week.
Right.
The other ones, it's gotten to the point where I'm like, okay, what's the subject?
Yeah, what's the topic, and then I'll pick from there. I'm kind of like that with my podcast too. It's like certain ones I'll always listen to, and then certain ones it's like, okay, what's the topic, or who's the special guest, or
right,
you know, whatever's happening.
And he's been doing these mega episodes where they're going back and they're talking about like all the King of the Rings, whether the episode is like 6 or 7 hours long. And I'm like, ain't nobody got time for that.
Nobody's gonna, I mean.
And no. I'm like, and you just took up like half the hard drive space on my phone.
Yeah.
Gone. You know, all of a sudden I'm going, Amazon Music is telling me I can't download a song. What? And I'm now mad because I'm like, Conrad, you know, and but yeah, so really he's just kind of the one funny. And now I think he is. I haven't listened to Flair's in a little bit because we knew that would happen. Flair would go back to every episode is just, let me tell you about the party and let me tell you about all the women, and you know.
And it's like, and there are some people out there, I'm sure, that want to hear that stuff. I'm sure.
Yeah.
I am not one of them. I am 48 years old, almost 49, and I've done my party, and I don't want to listen to somebody else's party of stories. I just want to listen to wrestling stories.
In fact, my calculations are correct. Your birthday is in like a week, isn't it?
No, I've got today the 30th. I got a little over 2 weeks.
Okay.
Yeah, mine's the 16th.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So you were basically like exactly a month and a half older than I am. So yeah, I was like, all right, let me see what day of the week is the 16th on. Oh, it sounds like actually it'd be on a Saturday.
Yeah. Yeah, it's on a Saturday this year.
I was gonna say maybe we could record on your birthday, but no, we'll have to do your birthday recording 2 days before.
Yeah.
On the 14th. Yeah. So yeah, we'll figure out something. But anyway, so yeah, this past year has just been all over the place.
Yeah, it's been very eventful, but I've enjoyed every minute of it.
Oh yeah, and we've actually interviewed wrestlers that neither one of us have even met in person, and because we got contacts, even one of them was through Chris Ahonen, another one of our friends who was also known as Big Fat, not Big and Fat. You're Big and Fat. He's just Big Fat, and then I'm just fat. But he through Chris, or some people know him as Big Fat, and I say Chris, and they're like, who?
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, I've known him as Chris for over 3 decades. So, but through him, we actually had Matt Stockdale.
Yep.
The Big Country, Matt Stockdale on the show. And Fat Matt, he was one who kept referring to him as Big Fat.
Yeah.
And it actually confused me for a second because we're like, so after a while, I'm like, yeah, him. But then through Matt, that's when we had Sid Holland on the show. I'd like to get both of them back on, just kind of a
me too. See how things have been going.
Yep. I know both of them. I mean, because they're both on our Facebooks, and so we see a lot of. We're talking like their personal pages, and so we both know about some of the stuff going on in their personal lives, which is both good and bad stuff for both. So, but both great guys. They were both really good interviews. In fact, we were Matt's first interview. Remember when he told us that? We're like, okay, and Sid was the one that all of a sudden it had to get cut short because that's when I found out my Zoom was about to.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
I was like, oh, I found out I didn't realize I was using the trial version of Zoom until right in the middle. It said you have 5 minutes left, and I was like, whoa, what?
like, huh?
So we didn't get to interview Sid as long as what we would have wanted.
Yeah.
But we're still looking forward to some other interviews. Thankfully, now that work has slowed down, we can actually start contacting people again.
Yeah.
My daughter wants us to try to get David Arquette on. I follow him on Twitter, but he doesn't have a way to contact him on Twitter. Now,
okay.
I also started following Instagram. Now, you can message him on Instagram.
Okay.
And a lot of times, they're looking, say, for contact, if you want to book this person, go through this, blah, 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 blah. That's how we got Buff Bagwell on.
Yeah.
And which I still have Buff Bagwell's phone number in my phone. That seems so weird still. I'm like, I just talked to Buff Bagwell.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I'm like, dude. And you're like, what? Like, seriously, I just talked to Buff Bagwell. Try not to mark out, trying to be cool, but it's kind of hard not to because.
I bet.
But we definitely want to try to get more interviews. So if anybody out there, if you know any wrestlers or if you have any suggestions for people, let us know. And we will try our best once again to try to get them on. A lot of times it is deconflicting our schedules with theirs because, if they're in the indie circuit, more than likely they also have another job.
Yeah, I was going to say they also have lives outside of wrestling. They have, they have day jobs and families
because actually that was part of why Sinclair was originally supposed to be on the panel show.
Yep.
But Sinclair, he has visitation with his daughter, and we're like, go be with your daughter.
Exactly.
We are not going to interfere with that. I mean, dude, and because in Sinclair, he'll tell you, the man will do anything for his daughter.
Oh yeah.
And she is his life. You can tell.
Yeah.
So, I've actually met his mom. His mom's real nice. And see, that to me is like the weird thing too. When we start meeting like wrestlers' families,
Yeah.
And we've become friends with them outside of this.
Yeah.
And getting to know them as people, and then seeing, oh, by the way, the person, like one, she also, she's basically a seamstress, and she's making costumes for people. And she had like I don't think it was a GoFundMe, but it was something very similar.
Yeah.
To buy like an industrial or heavy duty sewing machine. And she got it. And as soon as she got it, she actually sent me a picture of it. And because I donated like $20 to it. But she was able to get that sewing machine. Now she's making costumes for people.
That's awesome. Yeah.
And when you see, them, oh, by the way, here's me and my family, we just went on vacation to wherever.
Yeah.
And you're seeing not necessarily the wrestler, you're actually seeing them under their shoot name.
Yeah. You're seeing the real life people.
And I think that to me has been kind of one of the most rewarding things is, now we're getting to know the people. And me, I mean, I like to know people. I like to get to know their stories and not just, oh, let me tell you a wrestling story. I like to know the other person behind it.
Excuse me.
Yeah, because even like Selena Dane. So all I mean, Selena Dane, who was an absolute sweetheart of a person.
Oh yeah.
She really is. And then I think, well, we already mentioned Sinclair, that dude. If you're ever trying to like be serious about something, you can't with Sinclair because the dude is just naturally just funny, and he will have you in stitches. So if you need to cheer up, go talk to Sinclair.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Now he can be serious about some things when he needs to be, but I mean he also has a he has a shoot job also outside of wrestling, and also when talking to him, I mean it made me understand even more about wrestling, because he's even said, hey, if you ever want me to come on again, I mean, and so I don't think there's any of the ones we've had on that I wouldn't have on again.
No, I'd enjoy having everybody back.
Yeah. So in fact, I want to get Riley back on, Swinger, Chris Lotus, and Adam Swayze back on, because those were the ones that you weren't able to make.
Yeah, those were the ones that I had to miss. I had things come up that I couldn't avoid.
Yeah, and the first three I mentioned, they were sprung on me last minute. Yeah, that was actually Roger, and this is another thing that's kinda humbling, you have somebody whose name is that well known in the business hitting me up going, "Hey, can you interview this person tonight?"
Yeah.
And sure, "Hey, Dwaylon, can you?" It's like, "Ah, crap."
Yeah.
Because it's
Yeah.
and I'm like, "Alright," so,
Yeah.
um, but which was unfortunate because, I mean, so Roger trusted us enough, and then we found out talking to Big Mama that for her, and she admitted when she came on, she said it takes her, she wants to know who the people are that want to interview. And she said she realized that we try to put out a good product and we're trying to put the wrestlers over. It's not just us being fanboys. I mean, it's really,
No, no. Yeah.
so, um, and so we've been able to really kind of build a relationship with the NWF. And I'd say we're loosely affiliated.
Affiliated. Yeah.
Yeah. Because we're not officially theirs, and even though we love doing the stuff, and I haven't been able to go to as many events as what I had in the past.
Hmm.
Part of that's just because, well, money,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and I had car issues and things like that. So I mean, and just life. I mean, life happens.
Yeah. Life happens. You got to pay the bills.
Yep. And even though like Chris Harris, when we interviewed him, I said, "Yeah, I feel bad at you," because that was right before the Chillicothe thing. But they were
Hmm.
also having a show in Ludlow that very
Yeah.
same night, and I said, "Well," I said, "I feel bad." I said, "Because I'm going to show, I kind of feel like I'm cheating on the NWF." And he's like, "Well, you are."
He's like, you are.
You are, yeah. I mean, and he's another just absolutely super nice guy, and glad to see him being brought to the Impact. They were doing like that reunion thing
Yeah. Yeah.
because he was one of the charter members. I mean,
Yeah.
so for them to still recognize him and James Storm,
Hmm.
and so think about that. I mean, at one point, well, him and James Storm, they one year they were the Pro Wrestling Illustrated Tag Team of the Year.
Yeah.
I mean, and we had him on our show,
Yep.
and he was also ranked in the top 500. The PWI 500, which so I say, well, 500, that's 500 out of like 20,000.
Yeah. Or more.
Or more.
Yeah.
I mean, so think about how many professional wrestlers are out there, and they were in the top, basically the top 0.5% of all that.
Yeah.
And we had him on our show. Buff Bagwell, same thing. We
Yep.
had him on our show.
Hmm.
So really, my hope for this, and I think I can speak for both of us. Say both of our goals is to really grow the show even bigger.
Yes. Absolutely. Yep.
So, but hopefully we'll be able to do that, and hopefully work and sickness and power outages and internet outages and what else has happened?
Yeah.
COVID. I mean, I'll say COVID separate from being from sickness.
Oh yeah.
Because we both had COVID, and yeah, things. I mean, and all those are things that stopped an episode, but we always managed to get in at least one every week.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now
we always manage to get one episode in a week. We try to always do two, but we at least want to get at least that one in every week. At least
one. And so if something happens, we can't get it on Monday, we would definitely get it on Thursday, because I remember the one time as soon as we got done, you looked at me and you said, "Dude, go to bed."
Yeah. 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 And there was
tired.
One that was like, it was like we did it like right after I like had started to recover from COVID, and we did one, and you're like, "Dude, go lay down. You're about to pass out."
So, so I mean, it's definitely been fun, and we definitely want to have more guests come on there. Definitely want to have Kyle come back on for at least one show, because he was there at the very start of it. And actually, when we were talking about the episodes about Black History, that was originally Kyle's idea.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I wanted to make sure he got credit for that.
Yeah.
Because I mean, much as I say, yeah, that was my idea. No, it was actually originally Kyle's idea.
Yeah, that was Kyle's. Yeah.
Yep. And we just weren't able to have it happen February of 2021.
Right.
So waited, and so we were able to finally get it done. But I always want to give him credit for that, because that was that's an episode I've actually found out that people will go back and listen to.
Yeah. Yep.
Because Joe Pro, he's actually told me, like, in person, he's like, "Yeah, when I was listening to it again the other day," and So yeah, and because Joe Pro, he's another just super great guy.
Yeah.
And we've had one on the show. Yeah, everybody that was on the panel show, and obviously Sinclair, we've had them on now a few times, more than once.
Yeah.
So, but God willing, we'll keep growing the show. We'll grow our audience, and we'll keep
hopefully
getting.
So.
Oh yeah, I mean, we'll keep getting the good interviews. We have not had any bad interviews.
No.
And we'll figure out other ways to expand out. I'm actually looking at some other equipment to kind of get. I'm going to talk to Justin about some of his setup because I got to kind of briefly use it at Revolution Rising. I'm like, ooh, but you see changes there. Make new intros, new things, because on like every show out there, I mean, if you look at them from one year and then you look at it a couple years later, it's going to be different.
Yeah.
So
it's got to be different. I mean, you've got to change it up.
Yep. So, but it's definitely been real. And now we got to think it, because we're not going to be recording Monday. Monday's a holiday, so we're not going to be recording. That's a family day. So it'll be next Thursday, and we're going to have to see whatever blows up between now and then.
Yeah.
Because today there was actually a couple of news stories. One, I got to mention, but we talked about Logan Paul. Dana Brooke was in a bad car accident. I don't know if you saw that.
I did. She said she's okay. She'll be back soon. But so, our thoughts are with her.
And because Dana Brooke, she's another very underrated person, if you ask me.
Yeah.
Speaking of body people,
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
she's a bodybuilder, and she's very good. And there was one other story, and I cannot, because we talked about the lawyers, but I mean, that seems like an everyday thing.
Yeah.
So, I don't see anything. I don't really see anything right now that's standing out. So, but watch, it'll probably happen like as soon as we, start recording. So that's just the way life is. So, but I know we'll be keeping in contact throughout the week. So,
oh yeah, definitely.
So until we are able to figure it out, God bless.
All right. God bless.